invisible selling is so powerful is because when you are using invisible selling in selling or trying to influence somebody, that person does not know that you are selling.
You are listening to Inner Shift podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to my podcast. My name is Santu Nandi and I'm your host for the show. Each week I interview people who bring transformation in their lives, create a massive social impact, and help us to produce an inner shift within. Today's guest is someone who is known as the India's first mind map trainer, who started off his career from the marketing, and at the age of 30 he became a sales head of a multinational company. However, his utmost passion of understanding human psychology drives him to quit his job and started his career in the field of training and development. Later on, he launched mind map training in India, and he is a creator of the concept called invisible selling, which is transforming the perspective of organizations. Recently, he has received the prestigious Kotler Award. He has also written two very famous books, one in mind map, another one in invisible selling. He is none other than Mr. Dharmendra Rai. In today's podcast, he is going to open the box of invisible selling, which may change your perspective as well. So, without any further ado, let's welcome Mr. Dharmendra Rai. Welcome, guys, inside this podcast. Today's guest is Mr. Dharmendra Rai. He is the first mind map trainer in India. Dharmendra, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you very much, Santu. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much, and it's been a nice to have you inside my podcast. So, first thing first, you are the person who is known for the first mind map trainer in India. So if I look at your background, as you have just started off your career into sales, then you come into training, sales training, and a lot of researchers. So if you could share your
Right.
journey first, like how we have started off your career and your overall journey from a sales background to a person who is a trainer of invisible selling. So
Sure. So I have always been fascinated by human psychology right since childhood. At the same time, the younger generation today is extremely lucky. If they are interested in any subject, they can just hop onto YouTube, find out more about the subject, take online courses, join some college where those courses are being taught. There was very little being done in terms of psychology, in terms of courses, in terms of popular books. So it remained a latent dream for me. And I thought of understanding at least consumer psychology by doing an MBA in marketing. So I did an MBA in marketing and then started a career in sales. I had experience the sales journey in various companies, including Morgan Stanley, and the last one was with a company called Benchmark Mutual Fund, where I became the youngest sales head of a mutual fund company in India at the age of 32 at that time. And that company was into mutual funds, into the world's most advanced mutual funds. They're called ETFs or exchange traded funds. So I thought that I had accomplished a substantial goal in my life by becoming the sales head of a very accomplished company. This was a 15-year journey in corporate life. And then I decided to go back to my old love of studying human psychology in a deeper way by quitting my job. And one of the best ways to study human psychology, behavioral economics, the science of influence, learning memory, creativity is to go through the study material, is to read books, to see videos, to do lots of exercises mentioned in these sources. But one has to earn money as well. So the best route was to become a trainer. So I've been a trainer for the last 10 years. There have been various surveys which indicate that I am the most well known trainer in India today. I don't know how far that's true, but I feel pretty happy that I have been accepted as a leading trainer. And in the last 10 years, I have done close to 400 sessions in mind mapping for various companies, including Google. And I've done close to 150 seminars in invisible selling, again, through a wide range of companies, Fortune 500 companies, mid-sized companies, small companies, American Express Bank, for example. So that's where I am right now, and I decided to also write books. So I have two books. One is on mind mapping, one is on invisible selling. The invisible selling book, just about a week ago, has been ranked by Amazon as among the top 100 highest selling books in the world in the self-help ebook category. So
Since you have came from sales background and you jumped into training for fraternity, so when you joined into this training fraternity, what was your challenge, first challenge, and what was the gap you identified?
sales training or any training in India, the training industry in India, unfortunately, is a very disorganized industry and it is full of crooks. If you are a doctor or an engineer, you got to give several years of your life. You got to struggle. You got to slog your butt off for several hours a day trying to understand concepts, giving exams, giving practicals, and all that. But to proclaim yourself as a trainer, to say that you're a trainer on your LinkedIn profile or on your business card requires nothing. Anybody can call himself a trainer. So 99% of people in India who call themselves trainers, they are not worthy of being trainers. They have no domain knowledge. They have no respect for the training profession. They just think that training is an easy money business. They just don't see the hours of sweat and the investment that goes behind making good trainer. Plus, I had a background in sales and marketing, which really helps because in sales and marketing, you have a door slammed on your face at least once every day, no matter how good you are. So then you don't have PTSD or you don't suffer from depression every time you reject. So it's much easier to succeed in any field if you have a background in sales and marketing because you don't tend to get affected negatively by your failures. So that helped me a lot in just pushing myself, understanding. I already understood principles of sales and branding. So that part was not very difficult. The difficult part is to get more people to take training seriously, and that is happening. India is an evolving market. Plenty of multinational companies which are coming in, they already take training very seriously because the head offices take training very seriously. But the challenge is to make the market grow, is to get more people to take training very, very seriously and be willing to pay more for it.
As far as sales training is concerned, since you have come from the sales background and you joined as a mind map
Yeah,
trainer, first India's mind map trainer, as far as this training is concerned,
that's
one
right.
thing is very important in sales training: they always look for outcome. So in this point, how mind map training can be measured from the perspective of outcome?
Okay, so for the purpose of this podcast, I would really like to focus on invisible selling, and we can do a separate podcast on mind mapping. Otherwise, there will be a lot of confusion between these two subjects. But generically, to speak about outcome, uh, that itself is a wrong way to think about progress in work, whether it is sales or IT or anything else. If you look at how Amazon works, the focus on Amazon is more on the process rather than the results. In in Unilever, there is a greater emphasis given on the process that people have to follow in sales and marketing. And there is also some incentive based on results, but it is not 100% on results. So, in the biggest companies in the world, in the best companies in the world like Amazon and Unilever, there is much more focus on process than on outcome. If you are going to just give an outcome target to any professional, including a sales professional, then that professional will try to get that outcome by hook or by crook, by mis-selling, by misrepresentation. So it may produce very glamorous numbers in the short term, but companies like Amazon and Levers have shown that this process works better in the long run. And you can't argue with companies like Amazon and Unilever in terms of, say, stock market performance or efficiency or the return on capital that they've been generating. So I'm helping companies with the process. I'm saying in invisible selling, I am exposing them to some of the best processes in the world, which companies like Google, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Facebook are using, and some of them which they may not be using, but you can then use it and get fantastic results for your company.
So right now we have just published your book on invisible selling, and you are also conducting workshop on invisible selling as well. So what is invisible selling, and how can I make a difference between invisible selling and a conventional selling?
Yeah, conventional selling, the kind of trainings that are going on in selling today in India, the kind of books that are being written on selling in India, they're talking about the same basic strategies which we used to get exposed to in sales trainings 25 years ago. So most sales trainers will talk about the importance of dressing well, or the importance of having a firm handshake, the importance of smiling, how critical it is to do your homework before meeting a client, how to use the name of the client now and then when you're having a discussion with him. These are all wonderful, time tested, and proven techniques. At the same time, plenty of people already know them. Trainers who were training 25 years ago used to talk about these strategies. There is a wealth of research which talks about far more powerful strategies which you can use in addition to those basic foundational strategies which were being discussed and trained on 25 years ago. So, invisible selling is a bunch of strategies that are derived from various disciplines like behavioral economics, neuroeconomics, neuroscience, the science of influence, the science of compliance, the science of persuasion, subliminal selling, NLP, and the whole reason why invisible selling is so powerful is because when you are using invisible selling in selling or trying to influence somebody, that person does not know that you are selling. So it's not a hard sell. It's not something that just pisses people off and they feel like either just blocking you or shutting the door on your face. So it's not conventional hard selling. On the other hand, he may know you're selling. Virtually every email, somebody is trying to sell something. Virtually every interaction, somebody is trying to sell something. So people know that you're trying to get them to do something, but then it doesn't appear salesy. They are either enjoying the process or they have been influenced in a way that's not bad, that's not irritating them. So that's what invisible selling is all about. So let me give you a very simple example. If you are a restaurant owner and you have a buffet plan, when you have a buffet plan, the client is very happy because he can have unlimited food. but you as the restaurant owner want people to limit their portions. Now you can't tell people, hey, don't eat too much. I know I'm giving you a blank check, but please don't draw too much money out of the blank check. It just completely defeats the purpose. If you give them plates which are smaller in size, if you give them plates which are heavier, if you give them plates which are red in color, you literally have lesser consumption of food. So the concept of eating less has been sold by the owner of a restaurant to the patron, but the client hasn't even realized. There has been no direct message from the restaurant owner to the consumer of the food. So that's just one small, extremely powerful, and almost a supernatural example of how the subconscious brain works. And
In your invisible selling, in your book, you mentioned 5 strategies of invisible selling. Could you please explain what are these 5 strategies to my audience so that they can also get to know about these 5 strategies?
okay, so I'll tell you the names of the five strategies, and then depending on how much time we have, we can talk about maybe one or two strategies in
Mhm.
detail. The five strategies I have mentioned in the book. The name of the book is The Invisible Selling Book: Behavioral Economics and More. And anybody can read it for free on Amazon Kindle. If he wants to search for this on Google, all he has to do is type in or speak out Dharmendra Rai Amazon. And this way he'll get access to both my books, which he can read for free on Amazon Kindle. So the five strategies I have mentioned in the Invisible Selling book. The first one is free, how you can use the power of free to get more business. Second is reciprocity, how doing favors can be used for getting more business. The third one is social proof, how people like to copy other people, they like to copy their behaviors. The fourth is the zygarnic effect, or how you can use curiosity in generating sales. And the fifth one is anchoring, which is such a deep strategy that we can have a separate podcast all by itself just for the anchoring strategy. So these are five strategies, and it's deliberately a thin book. On the Kindle version, it's just 44 pages because I think it's better to absorb these strategies in a deeper way and go out and implement them rather than trying to read up on too many strategies and then not really implementing it or focusing on one or a few in greater detail. So, some people listening to the podcast might think that why do I need to really understand this strategy at all? Isn't it obvious that when you give something for free, people just tend to flock towards you? So it makes sense to give something for free and sell your product based on that. Now, the thing is, this half baked knowledge can be very, very dangerous. So, there are two things that I want to talk about the free strategy. One is that it is extremely powerful. And I'm going to give an example which will make even people who understand that it is a free, that it's a powerful strategy, even they will realize that they did not understand fully how powerful this strategy really is. Okay, so this is an example that's mentioned in Dan Ariely's book, Predictably Irrational. Dan Ariely is a very big name in behavioral economics. Here's an experiment where people enter a large building. There are two tables, and people can buy any one chocolate. So there's one table which offers Hershey's chocolates, and there's another table which offers Lind chocolates. Okay, Hershey's is a very popular brand of chocolates. It's a non-premium brand of chocolate, but it's very popular. Many people love it. You can buy a Hershey chocolate for 1 cent. Versus that, the other option is a Lind chocolate on the other table, which you can buy for 15 cents. A Lind is a premium brand. It's like the Mercedes Benz of chocolates. Now, Plenty of people in the 150 odd seminars that I've done predict that most people would flock towards the 1 cent chocolate because that's cheaper. But that was not the case. 70% of the people, they preferred to
Mhm.
buy
Interesting.
the Lindt chocolate. Okay, so this probably the conclusion could be that the people who came in were aware of both the brands, and Hershey's is probably a value for money brand, but Lind probably is bigger draw because it's got better packaging, it maybe smells better, it maybe tastes better, maybe it's got a better texture. These could be some reasonable assumptions that one could draw.
Mhm.
So this was one experiment. In the other experiment, some conditions were kept the same. The two tables were there. People would enter and they would be told that they can have only one chocolate. The only difference was that this time the prices were dropped by 1 cent on both sides, right? So in the first experiment, Hershey's was 1 cent and Lind was 15 cents. Knock off 1 cent on both sides, Hershey's now becomes free and Lind now becomes available for 14
Mhm.
cents. The important point, if a logician were to look at it, if you were to think about this very rationally, you would predict that there would be no change at all in the percentage of people who would buy
Mhm.
Hershey's versus
Mhm.
Lind. But the shocking thing was that the numbers just reversed. So now 70%, 70% now prefer to go in for the free option or the Hershey's option, and
Mhm.
only 30% prefer to go in for the Lind option. Now, this is absolutely shocking. It's absolutely irrational because the difference in price was the same
So we
at
can say,
14
so is
cents.
it a power of
Right?
free?
Yes, but it's completely irrational because the difference in price remains the same at 14 cents. If
Mhm.
I was willing to pay 14 cents more for Lind because I enjoyed Lind more, then why would I drop Lind and go to Hershey's just because Hershey's is free when anyway I was willing to pay 14 cents more in the first case? And that difference has not changed. So this was an absolutely mind-blowing example. People are just shocked with this example and they suddenly realize, oh my gosh, free seems to be like a, a an injection that literally makes people more stupid, right?
Right.
Because it seems to hijack the rationality of people's brains.
The
Yes.
question comes to my mind really that, so why our subconscious mind or our mind is highly influenced by the word free?
Yeah, now there has been a lot of research as to why people behave in such an irrational way. Not just in this context, but in plenty of places. For example, why do people pay for a gym membership and then not go to the gym? Why do people who realize the importance of savings not save enough? Why do people who know that junk food is bad for them continue eating junk food? Right? It doesn't make any sense. This is the behavior of extremely intelligent people, of educated people. So ignorance is not the reason behind it. So what's the reason? So for that, there is a separate field called evolutionary psychology or evolutionary biology, which looks at how cavemen used to take decisions. And we have a caveman brain. The human brain has
So you mean
evolved
to say the
very,
primitive
very
brain?
little. The primitive brain. We are all using primitive brains, and the primitive brain used to think in a certain way because thinking in a certain way and behaving in a certain way used to make sense for survival when we were cavemen, not today. But that difference is not understood by the brain. So, in the context of free, it has to do with a concept called loss aversion, or simply put, an absolute morbid terror of having losses. So when we were cavemen, getting a surplus of, let's say, food, right? Because when we were cavemen, we didn't have the concept of storage of value, because there was no money, there was no Bitcoin, there was no GPay. So we had to eat whatever we could get, whatever we could hunt. If we hunted a huge animal which gave us a lot more food than we needed, it really did not make any sense to us to feel happy about that excess food, because we could not store that excess food in any form, right? So the concept of excess or the concept of profit did not exist, but the concept of losses existed in a very deep way. If we had a lot of food, it meant nothing, but if we had less food, it could mean death, and that was a very, very vexing fear. And hence, people hate losses, even though those losses may not be life threatening. The brain reacts to any loss or most losses as if they are life threatening losses,
So
which is
we are
not true at
still
all in
driving
today's
by these
context.
behaviors.
Yeah. And the perception, which is absolutely wrong, is that when something is free, there is no outgo. But nothing is free. If you're not paying for something by money, then you're paying for it in terms of at least your time or attention. So the term free itself is a debatable term. So when a person hears the word free, his primitive brain equates it with something where there cannot be a loss. And hence, it's very, very attractive. So, this is the illogical, irrational, senseless reason why people are so fascinated by something free that they forget to think logically and start running after something that's free.
Irrational behavior really plays an important role when
Yes,
we buy something, when you decide to buy something, especially on free.
absolutely. Absolutely. Because when
Uh,
somebody is offering something to you for free, he's obviously calculated what it's going to cost him and how he can then ultimately recover more than that from your behavior.
Fantastic. So the strategies you are talking about, this is really going to help many people, especially when they're going to buy something and getting an offer of free. So they understood that how they are going to get hooked by the word free.
Yes, so there are two reasons to understand invisible selling. One is to understand it from a selling point of view. How do you sell insurance? How do you sell vacations? How do you sell laptops? You can use it in all industries. You can use it in B2B, B2C. You can use it online and offline. And the other reason to understand invisible selling is when somebody is using those strategies on you, as long as he's using it in proper way, as long as the products and services he's offering you are good, that's perfectly fine. But then plenty of people are going to try to sell junk and harmful products to you using these strategies. So you can shield yourself, you can protect your brain from being
Hmm.
hijacked by
So,
understanding
one
invisible
point in
selling.
your book, you mentioned that curiosity plays a very important role in invisible selling. Means creating curiosity among people. Don't share entire content or don't share entire information to people. So, if you could put some light here about this curiosity and invisible selling.
Yeah, so I think we'll just finish off the last part of free, and then we can talk about curiosity as the second and last strategy to be discussed in this podcast. So, the third and closing part of free is never ever offer your core products for free. Now, some people might say, well, isn't that obvious? Because if I offer my core product for free, how am I going to make money? But there are plenty of powerful buyers who will try to squeeze you, and they'll suggest that they get something for you for free so that they can come back later with a big purchase order. You got to be very, very careful about this kind of blackmail, if I may call it that. So, I'm a trainer, and this has just happened once with me in the last 10 years, because I've been very careful in projecting value in my trainings. But I had a head of a multinational company, a learning and development head of a multinational company, request me for a free training for a full day. And I flatly refused. So let's say that could be one example. If you are let's say selling a mobile phone. If you're a mobile phone manufacturer and there is a company which says, okay, we'll buy 200 mobile phones for our executives. If we like it, why don't you give one phone to us or 10 phones to us for free so that we can use it and see if we like the phones. Now, you got to be very, very careful because this is influenced by another invisible selling concept called anchoring, which we again won't talk in great detail here, but I have spoken about it in great detail in the book. Anchoring is when you get stuck with a certain image or a certain price. So if I had given a 1 day training free to this senior executive, he would have expected more sessions for free because I did it once. An antecedent has been set. That's one major problem. The second major problem is next time if he came to me and asked me for something, asked me for another session for free, and I would have told him, look, you told me to give you the first session for free, promising me that you would give me paid sessions if you like the first one. So this time you got to pay me for it. Now he might pay me for it, but he is unlikely to give me my price, which is a pretty stiff price for a 1 day session, because he is now comparing whatever price I quote to him to free. So, whatever price I say, I quote X rupees plus GST per day, he's going to say, oh, no, no, no. Last time you gave it to me for free. So, instead of X, why don't we make it X divided by 10 or X divided by 3 or X divided by 4? Because the difference between 0 and X is very, very large. So if you give your core product away for free, the next time people will expect that product for free again, or they will expect your product at a very low price. These are very, very dangerous traps to fall into. You can literally become bankrupt if you adopt the free strategy in a loose way. So never ever offer your core product for free. In the example that we've spoken about, we spoke about a bracelet being given for free when a liquor bottle is being sold. So the main purpose of the liquor company is to sell liquor. It's not to sell the bracelet. So in a way that makes sense. So if you're giving a different product and not your core product, that's perfectly fine. And another major tip I want to give to close the free topic before I take any queries from you is you can do a lot of stuff online now. You can give a lot of stuff that's free online because the cost of producing something, let's say a free ebook, is very, very less compared to a physical product. And you can also give free stuff which is produced by somebody else, as long as the person you're giving it to feels it has value for him. So that's how powerful invisible selling is. You can use plenty of strategies of invisible selling, which can boost your business tremendously without spending a single paisa.
So now, my the next question to you that I have just mentioned earlier, that curiosity, like how important the role of curiosity in invisible selling.
Right. If I meet somebody at a corporate seminar and I ask him what he does, and then he asks me what I do, and I tell him I train on invisible selling, 90% of people ask me exactly one question.
What is
What do
invisible
you think
selling?
that question is? Exactly. You hit it on the head. Right. So when you give information which is incomplete, it is terribly tension causing to the brain that receives it. Whenever the brain is exposed to something incomplete, it tries its best to complete it. So when I say invisible selling, a person doesn't know what invisible selling is, and he thinks the term is interesting. If the term is not interesting, then obviously he's not going to be bothered. Then he's going to try to complete the loop, and then he asks me what is invisible selling. Now there's another very powerful strategy of invisible selling which has been kicked off in this process. Normally, sales guys or plenty of guys, when they're introducing themselves or when they're selling a product, they just flood a person with lots of words and lots of details about what they do. Here, I have just told him a few words. I've told him I'm an invisible selling trainer. After this, an extremely critical thing has happened. It's completely changed the dynamics of the situation because now he himself has asked me, what is invisible self? Right? So there's a huge difference. I'm not now telling him, I'm not dumping some data on him. He himself is coming to me and seeking out my product or my service. So he attaches much more importance now to my product because he has asked for it, and he is going to listen very, very carefully to what I say because he's asked for it. And in most cases, the minute a salesman opens his mouth, people try to just walk out of the room. Here, it's a totally different dynamic. So this is also called the zygarnic effect because there was a psychologist called Bluma Zygarnik who went to a restaurant with a group of friends. She saw a waiter take down orders without using a pen or paper, and he would come back and he would give the exactly the right dish to exactly the right person. So his memory was like a computer, so to speak. And she was very fascinated with that. She left the restaurant and realized that her bag was missing. She went back to the restaurant, spoke to the same waiter. She thought it would be a breeze, right? Because he had such a great memory, he would immediately recognize her and she would get her bag back. But to her shock, he did not recognize her at all. And she was totally shocked. Now, this has happened because the entire process of dealing with the client had finished in the waiter's mind. When the waiter had got an order for food, it was important for him to remember who had ordered it because he had to come back and serve the food to that person. Once the loop got over, there was absolutely no incentive for the waiter to remember anybody's name or to remember anybody's face and what he had ordered. So she then did a lot of research on this, and that's why it's called the zygarnic effect.
It's really interesting and really insightful. That is also going to help us that how important to understand the psychology of selling,
Right.
especially when we are going to sell something. So first, so how important that go deep inside. We are not following the same conventional strategies. So now it's time to cutting edge new strategies like invisible selling.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just to round off on the zygarnic effect, just want to talk about two things. One is an example, and the other is something to be careful about. One of the masters of the zygarnic effect, the greatest Fortune 500 company to use the zygarnic effect in the most powerful way was Apple through Steve Jobs. I suggest every salesman in the world, not just every salesman, I suggest every human being in the world to see two talks of Steve Jobs, and the links are given in my book. One is the talk of him launching the iPod, and the other one of him launching the iPhone. When he is talking about the iPhone, right at the beginning of the talk, he actually takes out the iPhone from his pocket just for a second and keeps it back in his pocket. And he says, okay, we're going to have a look at it later. And the way he would slowly start revealing the product and the way there would be absolute secrecy before the launch event. All this was done so smartly, so systematically, only by Steve Jobs. The rest of the companies did it, but they didn't give it the attention that Steve Jobs gave it. And that's why you can see we are lucky we have these videos, we can see them and see the impact of the crowd, and you can look at the number of views on this talk, and you can make out that this is a very powerful strategy, and he's really been probably the biggest implementer in history.
His videos are really inspiring and it is really different than others. The way he endorses his products.
But secrecy is like crazy. The secrecy is taken to an institutional level in Apple. When people joined, I don't know what's the culture now, but when Steve Jobs was in charge, if somebody joined Apple, he would be given a very rough lecture about secrecy. He would be told that if you reveal any details of this product that you're working on, we will get the exact statement was, we will get the best lawyers in the world and screw you. Okay, that was the exact statement that was given to the employees. And there were also very strong rumors that spies would follow Apple employees to see where's he going. Okay, this guy's going in this restaurant. Whom is he meeting? And maybe the spies try to overhear what is the conversation. Is he talking about a product? Can we rely on him? So that was the kind of FBI, CIA, super secret service kind of importance that Steve Jobs gave
So that's why he
to the
was
zygarnic
mastermind.
concept. Absolutely, absolutely. He understood this concept and really implemented it. So that's what I'm trying to suggest people do is they try to understand this concept and they try to think about how they can implement it in their business. That's it. They should not try to think about anything else while listening to this podcast or while reading the book, because if they try to think about being skeptical about this or asking, okay, no, I want to get more research about this, only then I'll start implementing it. Well, uh, there's no end to how much research you can do. And everything that I've mentioned in the book, everything that we've spoken about in the podcast is based on solid, credible research. It's not an anecdotal book or an anecdotal podcast. So you want to get more reports. There are millions of reports available. But if you're going to wait till you read those billions of reports before implementing it, your competitor is going to find out about these strategies and ensure that you are out of business.
It's been a wonderful insight you have just shared with us, and I think it's really going to help a lot of people, especially who are into business and on the entrepreneurs. And we have just reached the last part of our podcast. So
Sure.
this part we call fast forward round. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and without any second thought, you have to answer very quickly. So are
You're trying to use invisible selling strategies against me now.
yeah. So are you ready for that?
Yes.
My first question to you, that what really drives you to get up every morning?
To understand human beings better, the desire to understand human beings better.
What do you do when you feel very low?
I just keep learning, either from people or from books or from videos.
My third question to you, what is your strategy to bounce back?
The strategy to bounce back is to just keep taking action. Winston Churchill said, when you're going through hell, keep going. Right? The minute you stop taking action, you're reducing your chances for success, because since you're not taking action, there is zero probability of success, and you are creating a gap in your mind for depressing thoughts.
Absolutely great. And my another question to you is that, could you please share three books to my audience? Name of three books.
Okay, so I would like to stick to the subject. So, the very first book I would like to recommend is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Daniel Kahneman is the recipient of the Nobel Prize for Economics. Though he is not an economist, he is a psychologist, and he got this prize with his partner who is dead now. His name is Amos Tversky. Now, just one more thing about this book is it's very, very big. It's about 1,000 pages. So don't be intimidated by the size. It's really extremely well written, written in simple language. And even if you read a few pages a day, if you read one chapter a week or one chapter a month, it is incredibly beneficial. So that's the first book. The second book is Influence by a gentleman called Bob Cialdini. Cialdini is Cialdini. He wrote the book way back in 1980. In 1980s, there was very little research being done at this level to understand how strategies could influence human behavior. So, in a way, Bob Cialdini is one of the pioneers of behavioral economics, and hence I strongly suggest this book. And the third book is I don't want to mention my book because I mentioned my book throughout the session. So obviously uh, that should be the first book before you read Thinking Fast and Slow. But the third book I would suggest is Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely. This is the book from where I got the very first example that I spoke about in the podcast about Hershey's versus Lind.
We have just come at the last part of this podcast. And before asking you the last question of this podcast, could you please share your details so that what is a possible way to reach you out if my listeners wanted to contact you?
Yeah, it's very simple. All you have to do is either say it out or search for it on Google. Just search for my name, Dharmendra Rai. That's it. This will bring you to my website, and on the website, you can send me a message. That is the easiest, fastest way to get in touch with me.
So it's been an amazing discussions within a phenomenal, insightful thoughts and research you have just mentioned to us. Thank you so much coming this podcast and sharing your insightful knowledge and wisdom about invisible selling. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me as a guest on your podcast.
Thank you so much for listening to this Inner Shift podcast. You can subscribe the show wherever you get the podcast from. I believe you have learned something that would help you to open a new possibility in your life. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next. Till then, sit back, relax, and reflect on your inner shift.